I, like many of you, have been seeing on social media and the news media the devastation and heartbreak that these fires have left behind and are continuing to leave behind. The physical and emotional toll that it's taking on everyone, including the firefighters who are working tirelessly, the family histories that have been lost, the businesses and community hubs, including churches that have been lost. So there are several things I want to discuss here to support those who have been victims of this fire and to support the rest of us in finding ways that we can help them so that we can all collectively rise from the ashes together. Welcome to the GenX Shift podcast, a show for Gen Xers who are navigating some pretty tough transitions and aren't sure how to move forward. I'm your host, Michelle Walter, proud Gen Xer, former lawyer turned entrepreneur, huge Jason Momoa fan, and margarita snob. And I've navigated a lot of transitions in my life, from losing my mom suddenly to a heart attack to starting my own business. But I often did it all on my own because I was too stubborn to ask for help. Now I'm on a mission to give actionable strategies to other Gen Xers so that they can find the confidence, courage, and clarity they need to make a shift. So let's rock and roll. Hey Gen Xers, welcome back this week. I've had a change in plans for the episode that I'm releasing today. I had intended to release part 2 of the series that I'm doing on hope. And last Tuesday, when I released part 1, is the same day that the horrific, devastating fires in Los Angeles broke out. So since then, I've taken some time to reflect, to consider how I want to show up for you, for others in this situation, and what I might have to offer that can provide some kind of support to everyone who is going through this and everyone who's trying to grapple with, well, what can I do in this situation? The title of this original 2-part series, which part 2 is going to come out next week. This is just added footnote, maybe a subpart of the series today. The title, Rising from the Ashes, How Gen Xers Can Ditch Hope, Take Action, and Breathe Fire into 2025, feels synchronistic and also potentially tone deaf, which is definitely not my intention. The title of this series and the messages around hope actually inspire action. Action for how Angelenos can rise from the ashes of these fires, how we can all support them in doing that, and how we collectively as a society and as a country can rise from the ashes of this terrible tragedy. So my deepest intention is that it doesn't appear tone deaf. It's just a synchronistic timing. And that the big takeaways from last week's episode today, and then the tips that I have for next week, will actually inspire action so that we can all support the residents of LA as they continue to fight and be displaced by these horrific fires. So before we move into part 2 of the series, which again will come out next week, I wanted to take this opportunity and this discussion around hope to see how all of us Gen Xers, or really anybody in general, but I'm focusing on Gen Xers, can take the grit and the determination and the camaraderie that we were raised with, that I know that we have within us, to support Angelenos through this awful tragedy. Before I forget, I want to invite you to go to the show notes for this episode, which are at lifefromthesummit.com/podcast/30, to find links to organizations and other resources that you can use to support and bring aid to LA residents and firefighters. If you know of another resource that I don't have on there that you think would be helpful, please send me an email at podcast@lifefromthesummit.com and I'll put it in the show notes. So let me talk first about where things stand as far as I understand them today, which is Sunday, January 12th. By the time this airs or by the time you listen to it, things likely will have changed. Right now, there are 4 fires burning: the Palisades, Eaton, Kenneth, and Hearst fires. 5 other fires have been contained. The Palisades and Eaton fires are now the 3rd and 4th, respectively, most destructive fires in California history. At least 16 people, as of today, have died. At least 13 other people are missing. Animals, of course, have been impacted by this too, both pets and wildlife. There are at least 400 animals at the Pasadena Humane Society alone, everything from dogs and cats to chickens and peacocks that people may have had with them in their homes, and they have taken them to the shelter because the people can't take them to their temporary shelter, or they may just need somebody to help out with the pets until they can figure out something else. And there are pets that have been displaced that hopefully can be reunited with their homes. In terms of wild animals, there's no way to get a number on that right now. We've seen footage of wild animals trying to escape the fire and the flames, coyotes with burnt fur, and especially the lingering smoke can make it hard for them to breathe, and they can't find water or food sources. The fires have burned more than 37,000 acres. They have destroyed entire communities, entire neighborhoods, and at least 12,000 structures, including homes, businesses, churches. The evacuation orders have been expanded with at least 153,000 LA residents under evacuation orders. The Palisades fire right now is only 11% contained, the last I saw earlier today, and it's moving more inland, at least right now, toward Brentwood and UCLA. There's gusty winds coming in today on Sunday and later in this week that are going to threaten to undo a lot of the work that the firefighters have already done. A public health emergency has been declared. Air quality levels are dangerously high because of smoke and particulates. Several water districts have issued drinking water alerts. In terms of firefighters and crew, there are about 14,000 personnel who are fighting the fires, which includes almost 1,700 California National Guard members. This also includes 939 personnel who are incarcerated. Just a side note here, these people are part of the Conservation Fire Camp program. It's a joint partnership in California that operates 35 conservation camps across 25 counties in California. These people volunteer for this fire conservation program, and so they can receive certain credits, time off from their sentence, 1 to 2 days, depending on the role that they're filling, for every day that they serve on a fire crew. And they are paid only between $5.80 and $10.24 a day, compared to non-incarcerated firefighters or their counterparts who average salaries are around $85,000 in LA. There also are about 70 aircraft and 1,700 engines, dozers, and water tenders that are fighting this fire. Mexico has sent 70 firefighters and disaster relief workers to help. Canada has sent crews, including planes, to help. There might be other countries who have sent help. I just haven't come across those yet. And the communities of Pasadena and Altadena are two communities that have been devastated by the Eaton fire and have a rich history of Black community and culture. Many of these homes, especially in the Altadena area, were passed down for generations through Black families. Once Black families were able to purchase homes after the civil rights movement, this is the way they were finally able to start building intergenerational wealth that they hadn't been able to do before that. So some of these homes have been in the same family for decades. These were some of the first homes that Black people were able to afford and buy in California. And many of those homes have now been destroyed. That's just a quick rundown of some of the facts as I know them at this point in time. I, like many of you, have been seeing on social media and the news media the devastation and heartbreak that these fires have left behind and are continuing to leave behind. It's not over. Again, as I said, the Palisades fire is only 11% contained, and stronger winds are expected to move in this week. The physical and emotional toll that it's taking on everyone, including the firefighters who are working tirelessly, sometimes for days without eating, the family histories that have been lost, the businesses and community hubs, including churches that have been lost. So there are several things I want to discuss here to support those who have been victims of this fire and to support the rest of us in finding ways that we can help them so that, as I said, we can all collectively rise from the ashes together. So I want to start with 3 things not to say or do, because I think we've all seen a lot going around on social media, especially, that I don't know about you, but I just roll my eyes and think, oh, good God, somebody actually said that. We all say things that we want to take back. I get that. And so let me just share with you 3 things that I've seen people saying. There are things that people say when they're well-intended, thinking that it's going to help the situation. And in my experience, sometimes these things don't actually help. So here are 3 things that I want to offer up not to say or do when it comes to the Los Angeles fires, and really to any crisis that someone is facing. First, I've seen several comments on social media from people who are engaging in what we call Schadenfreude. This is a German word that translates into pleasure or joy from watching someone else's suffering. The word Schaden means damage and Freud means joy. So there are a lot of people engaging in Schadenfreude, at least on social media. Comments about how this fire is cleansing LA of the Hollywood elite. Comments showing a complete lack of empathy for movie stars whose homes were destroyed. Movie stars are people too. They have homes and families and memories that were destroyed as well. And just because they have more money doesn't mean they're not suffering either. Comments from people saying things like, quote, "That's what you get, Hollywood elite. That's what you get." Or saying that this is Mother Nature telling humans to stop building, right? These are all kind of comments that engage in that joy in other people's suffering. And if you're feeling that, I want to invite you to check in with yourself and see the places, the dark recesses of your soul where that kind of comment might be coming from. Let's try to notice when we are experiencing joy at other people's expense. The second thing not to say or do is respond with things like, wildfires are just part of nature. No shit. Yeah, that's true. Wildfires are a part of the ecosystem and they provide a role in maintaining healthy ecosystems and surroundings in the environment. Vegetation and brush, which is very flammable, is often controlled with prescribed burns. And when those get out of control, or when wildfires that have started naturally, maybe from a lightning strike, when those get out of control, then you have a situation like we're talking about in LA. These fires have run amok. So even if a fire is part of the natural ecosystem, we want to remember the human and animal lives that are impacted by them, especially when they go run amok and get completely out of control like these fires have. We can't forget the human and animal lives that get caught in the path of these fires. And a lot has happened to allow these wildfires to burn out of control. We've heard a lot of talk about the Santa Ana winds. And yes, Santa Ana winds happen all the time. The problem, as I understand it, with these Santa Ana winds in particular, is that there was a low pressure movement that came in, resulting in a higher elevation of the Santa Ana winds. So instead of getting bounced off the mountains like they usually would, they were actually able to go up and come down the mountains with a swooping force, creating 100-mile-an-hour winds. And when you have 100-mile-an-hour winds, you have embers that can fly 2 miles away. That's one of the reasons this fire got so out of control. So I just want you to notice, if your first response is, well, wildfires are just part of nature, I invite you to pause and ask yourself, what is it in me that causes that to be my first response? The third thing not to say or do is don't push your positivity on other people, especially the victims and the firefighters. This is for everyone who, in the face of adversity, wants to immediately jump to finding the positive. I know people like that. I ain't one of them. I am someone who can, in time, come to see the feedback and the lessons from something. And there are people who are, I think we're all just wired a little bit differently. There are people who are more prone to just immediately jumping to find the positive, find the silver lining in a horrific situation. These are the kinds of people who, when somebody dies, their first response is they're in a better place. Maybe that feels good for some people to hear that. It sure as shit doesn't feel good for me. And for a lot of people I know to hear that somebody I love is in a, quote, better place, right? So yes, we can be optimistic. And some people, as I said, are more wired even to be optimistics because of their genetic and their background and their upbringing. But that doesn't mean it's for everyone. So if that's you, if you're a naturally optimistic person, if you're somebody who always looks for the silver lining, pump your brakes a little bit. And I'm going to talk about this in some of the tips for what we can do. Allow people their grief, their sadness, their anger. Don't come whooshing in like a Santa Ana wind, blowing your toxic positivity all over their shitty situation. Usually, in any type of crisis or adversity, what the people who are experiencing that adversity really need is to be acknowledged, validated, and given the space to be with their grief, their anger, their sadness, their shock, whatever might be coming up for them. So often, Gen Xers in particular, because we were raised with this pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality, We want to respond with a fix, manage, or control mentality. It's what a friend of mine called FMC. We try and FMC the situation, fix, manage, and control it. So we say things like, it's okay, you can rebuild. Just be thankful you're alive. It could have been so much worse. You'll find the silver lining in this over time. Like, that's the kind of shit I'm talking about. And that is often an attempt by the person saying it to FMC the person they're saying it to and that person's experience. Your intention might be heartfelt and kind. I get that. And there's a reason for the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Just because you may see a silver lining, or you may have had a crisis where positivity helped you, doesn't mean that's what that person needs right now or wants to hear from you. One of the biggest growth edges for Gen Xers, I believe, is learning how to allow people to be exactly where they are, especially when they're experiencing something challenging or dark or heavy. Instead of immediately jumping into that FMC mentality, I'm going to fix, manage, and control this person so that I don't have to be uncomfortable with their discomfort. When you're trying to FMC someone's situation, you're uncomfortable with their discomfort. So that's about you. Okay? So this brings me to 6 concrete things that we can do. There's probably more. These are just the 6 that came to mind. No particular order, not really a process here, just 6 things that we could do, some of them related to each other. The first one, as I mentioned, give the person the space to be with whatever they are feeling. You can literally say something to them like, can I just come sit beside you right now? Would you like to talk or cry or rage while I just listen? Would you like to go for a walk in silence? We don't even have to talk. Silence and space, really challenging, especially for us Gen Xers who want to FMC everything. Let the person share as little or as much as they would like. Don't diagnose or second guess or gaslight their feelings or their experience. Be in silence, be in presence with them. Sometimes being in silence with somebody is the best support that we can give them. People need to know that you're comfortable with them being uncomfortable, being sad, angry, disappointed, depressed, shocked, whatever it might be. And if you're not comfortable with that, if you're not comfortable being in silence and sitting with their discomfort, notice your tendency to want to FMC the person and their experience rather than hold them and their experience in stillness. If you have a tendency to want to jump in and FMC someone who's experiencing adversity, that's a great opportunity for you to get clear on why that's your go-to. So ask yourself, write these questions down. By the way, I should have said you might want to take some notes on this. I did not have time to prepare a free download. So take some notes because I'm going to have some questions that you can ask yourself. So if you notice that you have a tendency to FMC other people's situations, ask yourself these 3 questions. First, where did I learn that need to fix, manage, or control someone else's emotions or experience? Where did I learn the need to fix, manage, or control someone else's emotions or experience? Second, what do I think it says about me if I'm the one who has to fix, manage, or control someone else's experience? What do I think it says about me if I'm the one who has to FMC somebody else's experience? And third, what do I think it says about me if I don't fix, manage, or control someone else's experience? What do I think it says about me if I don't FMC someone else's experience? So that's the first thing to do. Allow people to have the space to be with whatever they are experiencing and feeling. Second, just acknowledge that you don't know what to say and you don't have the answers. Even if you can't resist the urge to offer some kind of positive outlook or perspective that you think might help, at least start out by acknowledging that you don't know what to say, that there really are no, quote, right words here, that nothing you say will fix the situation. At least acknowledge that. Explain that you want to be there for the person and you may not say the right thing. And so it's totally okay if they take what lands and leave the rest in what you say to them. The third thing to do is to ask if they know what they might need. And I say if they know Because sometimes people in crisis know what they need, sometimes they don't. They're so shocked or overwhelmed or have so much decision fatigue, they literally don't know what they need. So we'll talk about more of what you can do when they don't know what they need in tip number 4. But this is a simple question you can ask them. So write this down. In this moment, do you have a sense of what you need? That question doesn't presume that they know what they need. It gives them permission or pause to think, do I actually know? Do I have a sense of what I need? No, I don't. So ask that question. In this moment, do you have a sense of what you need? They may have no idea. That's totally okay. If they don't have an idea, this is where we proceed to tip number 4. Tip number 4, if it's somebody you know, just take an action. Take a specific action. Often when somebody that we know is in crisis, we're stymied about what we can do. We don't know what the person might need. So we do things like offer unsolicited advice or offer positivity that isn't warranted. Or you might even say something like, if you need something, let me know. Or I'm here for whatever you need. Just reach out to me anytime. Again, well-intentioned and can often create more burden on the person that we're talking to than we intended. We say things like, let me know what you need. Reach out if you need something when we're uncomfortable, when we feel helpless and we don't know what to do. So we're moving the burden off of us and we're putting it on them. Because then we can say, well, I offered to help. I told her I was here whenever she needed me and I haven't heard from her. Then you're absolved. You've helped, right? That's what we get out of saying shit like that. So it places the burden on the person who's in pain to come up with ways that you can help. And maybe they do. That's why I say back on that other question, in this moment, do you have a sense of what you might need? If they say no, don't say, well, let me know when you figure that out. Let's not do that. What we can do is take responsibility for what we actually can do in that moment that might be helpful for that person. For example, I had some friends who were going through something absolutely horrific and devastating, and they just couldn't get their bearings. They were a couple, they were individually struggling, they were struggling as a couple, and they were really suffering. And at the time, they were fostering some puppies. And that by itself is a full-time job. If you've ever fostered or had puppies, you can't walk away from them, basically. So they couldn't even get out of the house or have time to themselves. So instead of saying, let me know what I can do to help, or even let me know if I can take the puppies for a while, I said very specifically, why don't I come over and grab the puppies and I can take them off your hands for a few hours this afternoon? Let me know when you're back this evening and I'll bring them back over. They could not have been more grateful. It hadn't even occurred to them to ask somebody to do that. I didn't put the burden on them. I just said, hey, why don't I come over and take the puppies off your hands for a few hours? You let me know when you're back and I'll bring them back over. Done. Alleviates the burden on them for them to decide what you can do so that you feel better that you've helped. I just did it. So just take action. So if you know of someone who's suffering in the midst of these fires, think of an action that you can take that can bring some momentary relief to them. Because we're not trying to fix the entire situation. We're trying to bring a little moment of relief, a little bit of support. So just bring them the food or water. Bring them the clothes or blankets. Let them use your car if they want to take it somewhere. Make lists for them of people they need to call or things that they might need. Take them for a walk. Just show up and say, hey, let's go for a walk. Or just have them over for a movie and just watch a movie. Do something, no matter how small, that they don't have to tell you to do, just to bring them some momentary relief or pause. The 5th thing we can do is 4 questions to ask before you share your advice or your perspective. We may have very helpful perspectives or experiences or advice to share, and it can also feel unwelcome for people to get those unsolicited, especially when they're in a very vulnerable time. So if you feel utterly compelled to offer some unsolicited advice or wisdom or perspective, something that maybe you've found helpful, I want you to ask 4 things. Again, write these down. First, ask yourself, is this the time to share this? Check in. First, go back to tip number 1 and see if it might be more helpful right now to just sit with the person in silence. Maybe share your advice later. So ask yourself, is this the time to share this? Can it wait? Second question to ask yourself, does this person have the capacity right now to hear or receive what I want to tell them? Because chances are they may not. Third question to ask yourself, why do I want to share this? Do you truly believe it could help the person in this moment? Going back to the capacity question, do they have the capacity to receive it? Or are you offering this insider wisdom to help ease your discomfort around feeling helpless? So why do I want to share this with this person right now? And the last question is to ask the person, would you be open to me sharing something that might help? Asking their permission before you give them unsolicited advice. Would you be open to me sharing something that might help? The sixth tip and last one is the obvious: donate or volunteer if you can. That should go without saying. And again, please look at the show notes. I'm going to include a list of resources, places you can donate, that kind of thing. It's not going to be exhaustive, as I said. And donate or volunteer if you are resourced. And by resource, I mean, do you have the financial resources, the physical resources, the emotional, the mental resources? Because what often happens in times of crisis is that the helpers, right? A lot of Gen Xers, helpers, fixers, we end up burning ourselves out because we're trying to help other people. So check in with yourself and say, am I resourced to be able to do the kind of donation or volunteerism or help that I want to offer? So you can also search on social media for GoFundMe campaigns for individuals who've lost their homes. There are a ton of them out there. And not only donate, but just spread the word. Even if you can't donate, maybe just spread the word. Post it on your stories about all the different GoFundMe accounts that are set up for folks who've lost their homes. If you have a special skill, offer that for free. Like counseling, therapy, or coaching, offer free sessions to people. Meditation sessions, haircuts, cooking, like whatever it might be. If there's something that you do and you do it well, like offer it for free to folks who are struggling. It can feel overwhelming. And I know for me, like I just want to be able to help everybody. I want to give all the money and all the things and offer up all the animals a place to be, right? So we want to make sure that we're helping where we can with what we're resourced to be able to help. And remember that even helping one person means the world. It has a ripple effect. We don't have to help everybody. We don't even have to help one person if we ourselves are not resourced to be able to do so. So just be cautious and don't burn yourself out in the process. There's one more tip, maybe it's a bonus tip. It's really a practice that I want to offer that's as much for ourselves as it is for the victims of these fires and for the firefighters and everybody who's battling the situation in LA. And it's the mindfulness practice of Metta, M-E-T-T-A, or loving kindness. If you have a knee-jerk reaction to the phrase loving kindness, as Dan Harris talks about in his book, 10% Happier, I'm with him. Like I initially had a really kind of ick factor to that phrase loving kindness. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Just pick kindness if that feels better for you, like a kindness practice. But the word metta is actually a Pali word, and it's translated into loving kindness, which is why it's called a metta or a loving kindness meditation. Trust me, loving kindness grows on you over time. I don't have the ick factor reaction to it anymore. Buddhist teacher Josh Korda writes that in metta, we work to develop feelings of ease and love as boundless as the oceans that nourish and sustain our world. Metta is far from a passive gesture. There's lots of studies that show the benefits of a loving kindness meditation practice, especially when done regularly. These include things like increased emotions of joy, love, contentment, increased positive emotions and feelings of social connection. And God knows we all need to feel more socially connected right now. Metta can also strengthen the areas of the brain that are associated with empathy and emotional intelligence. And again, God knows we need a lot more empathetic people and people tapping into their empathy right now. Even when there's nothing that you can do in the moment because you aren't resourced, and that's okay. Or even if you do have financial resources to give or emotional or mental resources to do something, you can still practice metta. How do we practice metta? We wish happiness, safety, health, and ease toward ourselves and others. We offer this intention and goodwill, sensing into what it feels like to offer this intention to other people and to ourselves. It's not done to try to alter or disregard the reality of the current situation. It's a present intention that these people will experience safety, happiness, health, and peace. And so we usually offer these phrases of goodwill that go something like, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be at peace. Normally, there's a longer metta practice where we start with a person who's easy or a pet that we really love, offer those phrases. Then we move on to kind of a neutral person, then a challenging person, then ourselves and the whole world. For purposes of this episode, I'm going to keep it really simple by focusing on the people of LA. And so I invite you in this moment, unless you're driving, to pause, maybe close your eyes, and mentally whisper these words to yourself, repeat them to yourself. May all people in LA be safe. May all people in LA be happy. May all people in LA be healthy. May all people in LA be at peace. Try repeating those to yourself a few times, noticing any feelings that might be coming up for you. And try to practice this on a consistent basis to help cultivate those feelings of social connection, to help tap into your empathy. Lastly, let me leave you with a few thoughts on hope, since this is what kind of triggered this series and this pause in recognition of the fires. Next week, as I said, will be part 2 of the Rising from the Ashes series. And in that episode, I'll share 3 specific things that you can tap into that I believe are more powerful than hope. I recognize during devastating times like this that we hear a lot about hope. People saying that they will stay hopeful. Absolutely. If that feels good, keep saying that. I'm not here to dictate to anyone to let that go. The point of the series has been to plant the seed of awareness that hope may not be what we think it is, and that there can often be a lot of problems with hope, as I mentioned last week. My intention is to give you something more powerful than hope, something that's more actionable than hope, because there's something stronger, more concrete, more actionable than hope. And it's faith. I've seen a lot of videos of people who've lost homes, pets, businesses, churches, and loved ones in these fires. And while they often talk about hope, there's also something else that I hear that's much stronger and deeper than hope. They have faith. I watched 2 videos of older gentlemen, one 91 and I believe the other one 86 or 88. They had lived in their homes for 40 years. They'd raised children in these homes. They had all of their life's memories in these homes. And when they spoke, the one thing that they said, and that I've heard others say over and over, is, I will rebuild. They didn't say, I hope we will rebuild. They said, I will rebuild. It's a commitment and a trust that they will rebuild. Not right now, not in this moment, but they will rebuild. Faith is stronger than hope because faith has that commitment and trust built into it. Despite no evidence or even evidence to the contrary, faith persists. Faith often fuels behavior and action. Faith is even stronger than belief because belief is based on logic and experience, and logic and experience can change your belief. Belief is more of an intellectual acceptance of facts. Faith is a full-bodied acceptance. It's usually unshakable. And being unshakable, it inspires you to take action consistent with that faith. The people I've heard talking about losing their homes, even in the presence of unimaginable horror, have faith. They have faith that they will rebuild. Faith that LA will come back even stronger. faith that they will learn something from this someday. I believe it's faith that will move us through all of this to help each other rise from the ashes. So have faith. Be good to each other. Be good to yourself. And stay gold, Gen Xers.